It's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-400-8009. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Excited to be here. A lot to discuss today, a lot going on in housing. Spring is here, obviously. We're right in the middle of the throes of the spring-summer market. Extremely busy time of year. So I want to help you guys understand, for those that are following the market, kind of gauging what direction we're heading. Are we continuing this fast-paced environment that we've experienced for the past several years, or are things starting to slow down a little bit? So I'm going to answer that. We're going to talk a little bit about the market. We're going to talk about institutional investors, several of which have already been here for a long time, but we've just been hired by one to buy up 50 homes a month. I mean, there's a lot of money getting poured into Charleston, so I want to help you guys understand how that's going to change our little landscape here in our corner of the world, Charleston, South Carolina. I want to talk about how to compete as a buyer in this market, which frankly just continues to get tougher and tougher. And then, of course, a seller. How can we capitalize on what's happening in this market right now? And frankly, and I said this last week in my show, but I think that the window of opportunity for some in specific markets and specific price points in the Charleston area, I think the window of opportunity to get these ridiculous offers that we've been seeing that have become basically commonplace, I think that's starting to slow down. We're starting to see it on some of our deals with the high-end stuff we sell. And I want to talk more about those dynamics and how you, as a buyer, seller, even investor, can prepare for that. So that's what we've got planned for the day here on the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Now, if at any point in time you're listening to something and you say, I want to have a discussion with Brian off air about that, or if I can just help you with anything in general. We have a lot of folks that call that say, hey, I need a good contractor, or what would you do in this situation? Just help me out a little bit. So if you'd like to reach out to me, of course, we'd love to earn your business. Been licensed since 2006, top 1% of agents since 2009, over $1 billion in real estate here in Charleston represented. My number is 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or you can check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com, where you can search homes for sale on the internet. You can find out how many buyers we have for your home, should you decide to sell. A lot of great information, just educational in nature, based on all the radio shows that we've been doing for almost a decade, believe it or not. It's incredible at times to think about how quickly time has flown by. Or, of course, if you're more the type of person that is in the car a lot, then we've got a podcast. We're on YouTube. So just look up the Brian Beatty team. I'm sure you'll find us. So let's dive right in. I want to kind of first talk about the market and just where we're headed right now. And I think there are some things that are happening, I think, right before our very eyes. It's just that the data's not going to show that yet. We've got about a 90-day lag time between what's happening right now kind of shows up in the form of data. And a lot of agents, well, hopefully a lot of agents, are looking at the data and then helping their clients understand, based on this, here's the trend that I'm seeing. Here's how we can take this information and plan and make some informed decisions. But here's the reality. We are putting a little bit more inventory on the market, which is just consistent with the seasonal nature of our market and our location. We do have a seasonal market. The only time we didn't really have any sort of seasonal adjustment was right when COVID hit. But if you look at the sales prices, my goodness, they continue to climb. And let's go back a little bit. So let's go back to 3 years ago. Okay, so in April 2019, the average sales price in our market was $376,000. April last month, we were at $585,000 as the average sales price. Now, again, these are average sales prices. We have seen quite a bit more high-end property sell. And it kind of begs the question, why are so many high-end homes selling? Why are so many sellers choosing to put those homes on the market? We'll get into that in just a minute. But if we switch it over and we look at the median sales price, the median sales price is $399. And 3 years ago, it was, let me get to it, $270. So, I mean, we're up basically 18% year over year from April compared to April of last year, which is just an insane amount of appreciation. And the fact that we've experienced that at such a high level for 4 years. I mean, even 2 years ago, the average sales price was $375. So it was basically the same in April of 2019 as it was in April of 2020 because we hit that weird wall right when COVID came out. And then obviously things just went stratospheric. And of course, one of the reasons for that is that we just could not find enough inventory, and demand skyrocketed, inventory plummeted. I mean, I'm looking at the graph right now. Our MLS provides us with some really cool data and in real time. And if you look at the number of homes for sale, I mean, in March of 2020, we had 5,600 homes for sale in our market. And then by the end of the year, we were down to 3,000. And by April of last year, we were down to 2,000. And now we are around 1,200, 1,250-ish. We dipped down below 1,000 for a while there. And that in and of itself creates a bit of a bottleneck in our market. If there's just not enough homes to sell and we can't build them fast enough, then obviously that's going to have an impact on closings. So we're, a little bit behind where we frankly should be in April, according to stats. I mean, in April last year, we sold basically 2,200 homes. Last month, we did 1,900. Part of that's because there's just not a lot to buy out there. Or when it hits the market, a lot of these deals, that buyer has already been sourced. So they're listing it, and it's, it appears to you as the buyer that's kind of, waiting online like a hawk for prey, i.e. a house to be listed. Well, in many instances, those homes already have a buyer. So you're already competing with somebody. You've already got multiple offer situations. And, for those, for me, we represent a lot of sellers every year. In all price ranges, by the way. We sell land for folks all over the state. We do first-time home sellers. We've got a $5.5 million home on the beach we put under contract in 2 days. And everything in between. And so I guess the point in saying that is that we have an ear to the ground in terms of what's happening in our market, and that is versatile in nature. We are not specific to one subsection of our market on my real estate team. So we understand what's going on well. But the median days on market, get this, 3 days. 3 days before something's under contract. It's just challenging for buyers. And so I do want to talk about a little bit later on in this program, what can we do as a buyer to just have a different experience than what so many people are having right now, which is, we kind of just, we basically gave the seller what we could afford. It was ridiculous, but not overly ridiculous to the point where we're just making a stupid financial decision. But these are the things that we had to give up or sacrifice or risk in order to get this house. And that's not a fun experience for anybody. I get that. Everybody wants to win, right? There's this, this overtone with regard to negotiations that it has to be me versus them, and whoever gets hurt more loses. And that's not always the case. That's not necessarily how negotiations work. So, the challenge is you want to buy a house, they want to sell a house. You need to find a way for them to get what they want and for you to get what you want. And there's an effective way of doing that. And there's a ton of books and classes and training on effective negotiations. And quite frankly, our industry is a trial by fire industry. There's not, I can't recall training that I received from a brokerage with regard to negotiating strategy. I'm self-taught in that regard, but it also comes from having done, well over 1,000 transactions. You learn a thing or two over the course of a 16-year career. And so, as this market not necessarily opens up a little bit, because we are seeing a little bit more inventory hit the market, I'm certainly not ready to say that, hey, things are going back to normal. It's going to be a long time before that happens. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the month supply of inventory, which is kind of the statistic that we use to an extent measure the health of a real estate market, or how weighted the market is in one direction or the other, buyers versus sellers. And so they say a balanced market is around 6-ish months supply of inventory. Well, we've been, under a month supply of inventory for half a year. We've been under 2 months supply of inventory for, a year and a half. We have not been in a balanced real estate market since 2014. That is when inventory just started dropping. Every year, we basically went down about 1 month of inventory per year, with the exception of 2018 and 2019. But anyways, the point is, this market right now has a few things fueling it. Of course, we still have high demand, especially in our area because of all the people that are moving here. Rates clearly are going up, which is impacting affordability and the buyer's ability to buy something. But on the other hand, it is motivating them to get in now, because it just seems like all signs are pointing toward rates getting even higher. I was talking 2 months ago about some lenders that I know and I'm close friends with, and just, we're what we would call industry experts, talking about interest rates, and they were not surprised, or they were hedging bets that by the end of the year, interest rates would be at 7%. Well, we're not far off, and it's going that direction, or so it seems. No one has a crystal ball, but maybe 8% isn't unrealistic. So, we've got a lot of headwinds still for buyers. We've got a lot of supply that we have to make up, and so from my perspective, I don't think we're going to fix our problem. And it's not really a problem to begin with, by the way. It's just, if the market is going to return to normalcy, if the scales are going to balance, it's going to be very challenging to do that from the supply side, because of the length of time it takes to build, because of the cost of the land, the cost of construction, the cost of labor. How can you incentivize a large population of people to sell their home when they now have 3% interest rates? So it's tough to get it from the supply side. We're going to have to beat down the demand side, which is one of the things that the Fed is doing with their rate hikes to try and combat inflation. But, they're destroying demand effectively. And that is a real strategy. And so as time goes by, what I think you're going to see is the buyers are going to stop subscribing to this notion that if they want to buy something, they've got to make a ridiculous offer, swing for the fences, give it the very best they have. I do think things will start to slow down here a little bit, maybe more toward the end of the year, because I still think we have a run of appreciation left. That being said, we'll see what the data says 90 days from now, because we are seeing the effects of the increase in interest rates right now. Deals that have been caught up, that have been delayed for whatever reason, those rate locks that those buyers have for their mortgages are expiring, which is very, very bad. We've got buyers that have 4% or less interest rates, or 4.5% interest rates. And those lenders have locked those rates for, call it 45 days. And if some sort of delay in closing occurs and that lock expires, now they're forced to look back at that mortgage at today's rates, which could be 5.5%, 6%, maybe even more, which puts people in two different categories. Either I can no longer afford this house. Well, I guess three categories. Either can no longer afford this house. I don't want to pay for this house at that cost. Or, you know what? It's fine. Let's just move forward and let's buy it. So it's not all doom and gloom, but we are seeing some people that are essentially getting priced out of the home that they had under contract because at the time they put it under contract, they could afford it, but now they can't. And so when we come back, I'm going to talk about, and as unfortunate as this is to say this, buyers are going to have even more competition in our market locally, especially in the price range that is extremely competitive. And I'm going to talk about institutional investors. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Remember, if you want to reach out to me and have a discussion about your real estate needs, you're thinking of buying, selling, investing, maybe becoming an agent yourself, or maybe you're an agent now and you just like a change of pace. We are hiring. It is a full sprint right now for some additional help based on some great things that we've got going on, which I'm about to share with you when we come back. But if you want to reach out to me, 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065, or check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Broadcast Saturday mornings at 9 and Sunday mornings at 10 on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA, the Big Talker.
You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Thanks again for joining me as we continue our discussion about housing here in the Low Country, which is what this show is all about. You know, for those of you that are tuning in for the first time, this is where you come to learn more about not just the housing market here in Charleston, but the process. You know, I'd like to think I do a really good job of kind of peeling back the curtain on our industry and helping you kind of take a look inside to understand how our industry works, how real estate agents think, and then how you can use that information, you know, information on the process, the market, and the industry to help educate yourself and make informed decisions about the real estate market. Everybody always wants, you know, hey, everybody wants to, you know, buy low, sell high, right? And as this market continues to an extent, surprise everybody, I think, you need some clear direction on kind of which way things are headed and what should you do and when should you list, when should you buy, how much should you pay, what's the right strategy and what's the wrong strategy. It's different per person, but that's what this show is all about, to help you better understand really what's happening out there. And so I want to get to some really good news, but first, if you want to reach out to me, if you want to have a conversation about your specific goals, you're thinking about buying a house, thinking about selling a house, let's get together, let's talk about the market. If you're thinking about selling, let's walk through the house. I'll tell you that there are a lot of things that you might think you have to do to your house that you really don't. There's a bunch of stuff that people end up doing, sometimes at the direction of real estate agents, that end up costing you money and not making you money. And so if you're thinking of selling, let's do a walkthrough. I've got all the contacts you need to fix the place up if, in fact, it does need some work. Of course, we can come up with a strategy, and I can likely bring you a buyer before it even hits the market, which is what I'm going to talk about right now. But if you want to reach out to me, 843-800-0065. That's the number, 843-800-0065. Call or text. You can email me, brian@brianbeattyteam.com, or go to listingsincharleston.com. So here's the big news. We have been hired by an institutional investor to help them purchase 50 homes per month in the Charleston market. They are paying cash. They are as is. No appraisal, no repairs, flexible closing date. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And so that's what so if you're thinking of selling, I've got a cash buyer for you right now. So again, 843-800-0065. This is very real. There are already institutional investors in Charleston, by the way. Some have been here for years. But let's kind of start with, what is an institutional investor? What do you mean by that? So an institutional investor buys, sells, manages, everything from stocks and bonds to other investment securities on behalf of its, clients and customers and stakeholders and so on and so forth. And so broadly speaking, there are a few different types of institutional investors: commercial banks, mutual funds, hedge funds, pension funds, insurance companies. And so they're looking for a place to find a reliable rate of return in an environment that's not so volatile. And, again, there have been institutional investors and large investors in Charleston for years. American Homes for Rent is one of them. But these are folks like, Zillow that used to go out and buy homes, or Knock or Open Door or OfferPad or Sunday. I mean, there's a bunch of them out there, Invitation Homes. But what these companies do is they go and they buy something. They see that properties are reasonably appreciating, but they're looking at the spread between what they can buy it for, what they can rent it for, and then, of course, the ultimate ROI, so that they can provide their stakeholders, their investors, with a consistent, somewhat safe return, or at least safer than other investment vehicles or strategies. I mean, look what happened with the Dow. And so it begs the question, well, why are they buying so many single-family homes? And that's what they're buying. They're not buying, some of them are buying apartments, things like real estate investment trusts, REITs. But a lot of the institutional investors out there are focused on single-family detached homes. And so why? Why are they doing that? Why would, money from Wall Street go out and buy a bunch of houses? Well, first of all, the rental population is an important component of this, and there's some reliability there. 75 to 80% of tenants of single-family homes renew their lease. There's a 3-year average rental term on, residential single-family detached investment property. And, they take care of the property as well. They mow the lawn. They do generalized, maintenance-related things. My mom and stepdad rented a place for years and years and years, and our house always looked great. I was always, probably because of me, by the way. Now that I think about it, I'm the one out there pulling weeds, laying mulch, cutting grass. I did a lot of manual labor when I was a kid, but I kind of enjoy it, and I enjoy it now too, ironically. No PTSD there. But anyways, they take care of the property. They've got this pride of ownership, even though it's not theirs. Another reason why is that there's no face-to-face issues like you might have in an apartment complex. The tenant rivalries that sometimes brew in apartments are not fun. And frankly, for me, that was one of the reasons why I was so motivated. Gosh, this was 11 years ago when I was the top agent in the Southeast U.S. for my brokerage. We were living in a condo. The tenant, we owned it, my wife and I, but the tenant right across from us worked the night shift, and they would routinely leave their dog out on the porch, and that dog would just bark all night long. Drove me insane, which maybe is the reason why I'm insane. I'm just kidding. But anyways, you've got these issues that sometimes arise in these apartment complexes. You don't have to deal with that with single-family detached homes, at least not as much. But then here's the big kicker. Rents are up about 20% in Charleston. And I think they're slated to continue to go up because we're kind of moving toward a nation of renters for a variety of reasons. But I'll get to that in a minute. They're also looking at the fact that, hey, our market is appreciating consistently. Prices are up 18% compared to April last year. They're expected to continue to rise. And here's the beautiful thing. Real estate never goes to zero like stocks would. It's also a hedge against inflation and other just volatile investment vehicles. But here's what's interesting, why I say we're kind of trending toward a nation of renters, which obviously is an aggressive statement. But and I don't obviously mean that everybody's going to become a renter, but the rate of home ownership, if you look at that really peaked in 2005. It was at 69%. And then it declined until 2016, where it bottomed out at 63.5%. Right now, even with everything that has happened over the past several years since 2016, we're still at 65.5%. We're still below 2005. And so just bigger picture, there's been a bit of a paradigm shift. Younger millennials and newer generations just aren't as quick to buy homes as baby boomers once were, as an example. So you've got, like, you know, in the wake of the Great Recession, compounded with enormous student debt, trying to establish your career, and the increased cost of home ownership, you know, in addition to everything else that just costs more, owning a home has taken a bit of a back seat to that section of the population. And there's a bunch of studies that have been done on this as to why. One being that they value experiences more than they value things. And so first-time home buyers is really what we're talking about here. They peaked in 2009 when 47% of purchasers bought their first home. It bottomed out in 2017 at 29%. And now we're still sitting somewhere in the low 31, 32% range. So we're missing a large population of first-time home buyers. That's why institutional investors are out there buying up property so they can basically take advantage of this large population of renters that will need housing. And they're further enough in their career and in their life to where they can afford something fairly nice. And you know, so how can you as a buyer, this is the question. So how can you as a buyer kind of compete with a cash buyer that's as is, flexible close date, no repairs, no appraisal, so on and so forth? It's really tough to do. I'll mention this again. We've been hired by an institutional investor to help them acquire 50 properties per month. So, and they're paying full price for things. So if you're out there, you're listening right now, and you want to sell your house, I'm just here to tell you, I got a buyer for you right now. Just give me a call, 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065. We'll work with you on the closing date. Obviously, you're going to have to find a place to go if one hasn't been lined up for you. But the nice thing is that if you need to sell your home before you buy, you've got a cash buyer in your back pocket. It makes it a heck of a lot easier to go to that seller of the home that you're trying to buy and say, hey, here's the deal. I've got a cash offer, guaranteed, no contingency, going to close on my home. So it sure does make it a lot easier if you're a buyer. But if you're competing against one of these institutional investors, what they will not do is they will not go above fair market value, which is independently determined. So that being said, you kind of have to compete with other buyers in this market anyways. When the homes are selling in 3 days, it's very commonplace for you to be in a multiple offer situation. The key, of course, for a buyer is to try and find this home before it hits the market and before there's any other competition that's staked their claim to it or expressed interest in it. And so sellers, if you're trying to get your hands on some of this money, I'm just here to it's not my money, but it's money that we are investing based on what this investor is looking for. So if I'm a seller out there, if maybe I've got a rental property and that tenant's coming due and I'm thinking about selling it, I'm just here to tell you I got a full price cash offer for you, as is, flexible close date right now. Again, the number to call, 843-800-0065, 800-0065, or go to listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back with more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Visit Brian Beatty's website at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on The Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA.
Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I always like to take just a moment and say that I appreciate those of you that listen to the show and rely on the information within it to help shape and understand your goals better, your aspirations better as it relates to real estate. If you're thinking of buying, selling, investing in real estate, maybe even becoming a real estate agent or changing to a different brokerage if you're not getting what you need. But the whole point of the show is just to arm you with the information you need to make informed decisions. So I appreciate those of you that rely on the information within it to help do that. Now, I want to switch gears just a little bit, and I want to talk about selling for sale by owner. You know, and I think to an extent our industry has done this to ourselves. I personally, and I've been pretty vocal about this, but I just can't stand all of the real estate posts about agents flexing about how many homes they sold, or that, hey, I just sold another home for full price in a day, they make their job look so easy. That's the narrative that they're pushing so that everybody sees how awesome they are. They never talk about the things that take, 4 weeks to sell or 2 months to sell. And let's be honest, not everybody wants to sell their home in 2 days. Some people are perfectly fine with waiting a month or 2 or 3 if they get the price they need or if they get the terms that they need in order to move on to the next chapter of their life, whatever that might be. And so a lot of folks are saying, well, maybe I should just sell it myself. And I'm going to read a text. I'm actually going to read the text. I've been given permission to do this. And so here's the text. I'll read it and then we'll get into it. Here's the text. This is great. Let me just say, I totally get why people hate agents and selling houses. I feel so exposed, it's sick. These vulture agents have been swooping down on my property like they smell a carcass. People ring my doorbell anytime they like with no phone calls just to tell me how great they are and how they can sell my house. And I keep telling them, if you want to sell our house, bring us a buyer. But they just keep calling me. I know not all agents are this way. I bet, in fact, the good ones wouldn't be caught dead soliciting themselves like a bunch of ambulance-chasing attorneys. I just want and need life to go back to normal and to sell my house. I also feel like my FSBO sign literally says, come harass me. I'm not getting anywhere, and the whole point in selling for sale by owner is not paying a commission, but that's all these agents want. Clearly, she's a little upset. And so I get it. Here's my response to that. And that's not all. I want you to first understand that there are plenty of folks that do sell their homes successfully and do save some money in the process. There are others that sell their home, but they haven't saved really anything. And so basically they just worked for free. And the math on that can be pretty simple, especially if you're working with someone that's even remotely savvy as a buyer or as an agent representing a buyer that's bringing you a contract, which is not a great situation for you to be in as a for sale by owner, honestly, especially if it's an agent that's experienced, that really doesn't owe you anything, and is their responsibility to protect their buyer and their best interests, not yours. It can get pretty rough for the seller because you don't know what you don't know. But when it comes to selling for sale by owner, look, about 50% try selling it, doesn't work out. 50% just want to sell and they want to save some commission. And by trying to sell and it doesn't work out, meaning they hired an agent and it didn't work out. Now, this is a stat from a few years ago. Today, it's not really a challenge to get the home under contract. I guess the question is, number one, did you maximize your sales price not only at the initial negotiation of that contract, but how much hair does that contract have? How many different ways can that buyer kind of dig in and twist a knife and get something after the fact? That's how a lot of these buyers are kind of winning, so to speak. They're making it up on the back end by creating open-ended due diligence periods, ambiguous language, And again, if you've not been through this before, or if you're not working with somebody to at least be a transaction broker for you, or a good real estate attorney, then there are many instances in which sellers really are frankly taken advantage of. But look, inventory's low, demand is high, prices are going up. Sounds like a good time to sell. I agree. I get it. I had a conversation with a first-time home seller that's interested in selling, and they're moving to Hawaii on a military relocation in about 6 months. Had an idea of selling for sale by owner for the first few months and then giving it to an agent if it didn't work out. They had plenty of equity and they had time, 6 months. And so here's what I told them. I said, hey, give it a shot. If you find a buyer, then let me know. And for a significantly smaller fee, I'll write up the contract. I'll make sure that what you and the buyer are trying to accomplish is reflected in an agreement appropriately, just so that there are no surprises. There are no loopholes that sometimes these buyers or investors can create and get out of the deal at no penalty, or ask for things that they probably shouldn't have. Like there's this whole kind of movement where they're saying as is, but they're checking a different box. And so even though they've said as is, doesn't mean anything, because the contract says they have the right to negotiate repairs. So there's just all these little things that you as a seller need to be aware of. But the first, what I would say to somebody thinking of selling their home for sale by owner right now is, first and foremost, be prepared to work hard. You've got to work on your condition. You've got to work on your staging. I've got a guide. I actually have two guides, and they probably they go hand in hand. And so let me just say really quickly, if you want a guide on how to prep your home for sale and tips on selling your home for sale by owner, then just text the word guide to 843-800-0065. 843-800-0065. Text the word guide, 843-800-0065. I'm going to reply, and I'm going to ask you for your email address so I have a way of sending it to you. And then I'll provide you with that report. But you've got to work on your condition, your staging. You've got to do your pricing research. Now, you can go and look up Zillow, and God, I've talked so much about Zillow on this program, it makes me sick. But the reality is, Zillow knows nothing about the condition of your house, and it knows nothing about the upgrades inside your house or on the outside of your house. There's only so much you can do to update that information. So, I mean, if you really want to hit the nail on the head, get an appraisal, but that's what we're here for. That's what real estate agents are here for. We won't charge you anything. Would we like to earn your business as someone and list your property for sale? Absolutely. Who wouldn't? But I'm in the business of helping people, and if you need an idea of what your home is worth, let me know. It doesn't take me long. It takes me a few minutes to pump that information out. I'll happily do that for you with no strings attached. That being said, maybe you want to buy a home after you sell yours. Maybe we can work together in that regard. Maybe there's someone else you know. But I think the more you give, the more you get. So aside from your pricing research, what's your marketing plan? Which is mostly self-taken photos and a FSBO sign, maybe some flyers. Some go the extra mile and make a website for their home, and maybe even they put it in the MLS in like a flat fee listing. They pay a few $100 just to get in the MLS. Most websites that these homeowners create are basically a billboard in the middle of nowhere, though. They've got a site, but they don't focus on driving traffic to that site. And frankly, that's why a for sale by owner, when it comes to marketing, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but I'm just giving you a frame of reference that there's just no way they can compete with somebody like my team that literally gets hundreds of thousands of clicks a month for all the properties that we market and the advertising we do. And the sometimes 1,000+ people that contact us every month, that takes a small army to sift through to determine who's serious from curious, right? We don't want to be out there showing property or asking sellers to, clean up their home and put their kids and dog in a car and drive around for an hour for somebody that's not ready to buy something. Or at least we're going to be very upfront with the situation beforehand. But gosh, that in and of itself is the worst. And that's one of the big problems in selling for sale by owner, is that you now have to take on the job of being a real estate agent. You've got to be there when people are walking through your house. And if you're not taking the time to qualify your showings, you're going to get frustrated really quickly. Because there are a lot of agents out there that say, hey, I've got a buyer, I want to preview it for them, and when can I come by and take a look? And there is no buyer. It's the oldest trick in the book. There is no buyer. They just want to get face-to-face with you, talk more about what's going on with you. And so you'll notice they'll ask you a bunch of questions. They're fishing for information. They're looking for things around the house they can use to build rapport with you. And they're trying to kind of insert themselves into the process to say, well, if you don't sell your home, when are you going to list it with an agent? And blah, blah, blah. And I don't mind any of those questions, by the way. Those are great questions to ask. But it should not be done under this false pretense that you have a buyer that you're looking for this property at, or looking at this property for. I don't like disingenuine sales tactics. I'm very clear about that. I've been very vocal about that on this program. But you've got to be available for showings. If you work a 9 to 5, some buyers just won't wait on you to be available on the weekends. You're also the one doing all the follow-up for feedback. You got to educate yourself on this process. You need to know what the contract says if you're not going to hire an agent. And if you don't feel 100% comfortable with the contract, then either hire a real estate attorney or hire an agent to act as a transaction broker for you, where we are simply helping you fill in the paperwork based on the maybe verbal agreement that you have between yourself and the buyer, to make sure that everybody's on the same page and that what you want, the intent, is properly reflected contractually. The other thing that I would say, is there's obviously the safety concern associated with this. So I think at the very least, you should be getting, a copy of their driver's license. You should be having some sort of calendar that is shared with somebody else that says this is the person's name, their phone number, their email address, and this is when they're going to be at my house. You've got to have some sort of record of who's seeing it and when. And if you've got, if you're a for sale by owner and you just feel like you're spinning your wheels with all these agents saying, oh, I got a buyer for your house, when they don't, well, then here's how you solve that. Hey, send me a copy of your buyer agency agreement. And, be with your buyer when you come and see it. Now, they might say something like, well, they're out of town. Okay, well, you can FaceTime with them and we'll walk around together and I'll answer any questions you might have. In most instances, agents are not going to go through the process of basically trying to find someone and act as a buyer, a fake buyer, to maintain this basic lie that they've told, which is that I've got a buyer for your house, when they don't. I don't mind agents calling for sale by owners. I do it and saying, hey, if you have not sold your home, or if you at any point in time want to list with a professional, I'd like to apply for that job. And that's a genuine ask, rather than, hey, I got a buyer for your house, when can I come by and preview it for them? When they don't. Some do, most don't. So just some tips for you if you'd like that information on selling on your own or prepping your home for sale. Just text the word guide to 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065, or go to listingsincharleston.com. Stick around for the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 9 and each Sunday morning at 10 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
1250 WTMA, the Big Talker.
Expert news and views on the Lowcountry real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. I didn't do a very good job this weekend of taking care of my time because we've only got about a minute before the show ends. But I did just want to relay again the seriousness of this investor that we have been hired by to acquire property in Charleston. They are paying cash. They are paying full price, no appraisal, no repairs, flexible closing dates. If you're considering selling your home, then give us a shot first. Give us a call. We'll pay you full price for your house. It's literally just that simple. So all you have to do is call or text 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. You can click on the contact tab, tell us about your house, and we'll tell you how much the investor will pay for it, which will be full market value. So thanks so much for your time. You guys enjoy your weekend, and thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009.